Thomas, we got imposter syndrome. I face it. I face it every day. And I think a ton of salespeople face it as well, which is why they might feel like they're not doing enough. And that's where that it's not for me. This job doesn't make sense for me aspect of it comes in as well. But I want
Hmm.
to know your thoughts. What are your thoughts on imposter syndrome and people who face it? Because I feel like it's inevitable in sales.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable everywhere. Anytime you start something new, you ask yourself, are you qualified? Can you do it? And then as you're doing it, you're like, oh, they're gonna find out. They're gonna find out I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't have my shit
Yeah.
together. Yes. So in sales, the piece that I will say is the salespeople or sellers, they start to say, I need to be technical. I can talk about tech sales. I need to be technical in order for me to do this, or else I'm an imposter, or else I feel like an
Yep.
imposter. Or they put these artificial speed bumps in front of them and say, I will never be where I want to be on the other side if I don't get this certification, if I don't know exactly what they're talking about. And then because we're in tech sales, we sell to IT a lot, right? We think that they know everything. They don't
Yep.
either. I guarantee you they have imposter syndrome too. They probably specialize in some pieces of their of their environment, and that's where they need help from other people, like specialists. And I guarantee you specialists don't know it too. So everyone has imposter syndrome, especially in sales. When you win a deal, if you allow imposter syndrome to say, we won that deal or I won that deal because I was just lucky, and you discount the hard work that you put in, the responsiveness that you had, you going out of your way to find out information, you really hand holding that customer through the sales process and getting them the stuff they need to feel safe and comfortable, then you will never be able to celebrate the way that you should.
Yep. Yep.
So that's what I think about imposter syndrome for sales.
I think one of the best pieces of advice that I got from you when I was first starting my career was when I was facing a ton of imposter syndrome because I was speaking to like director level IT folks
Yeah.
and going into C-suite meetings as someone who's just starting his career off. He told me there's some things that I know that the person that I'm talking to doesn't know either. They don't know how to
Hmm.
use Salesforce. They don't know how to place an order through Salesforce. They took that meeting for a reason. They need my help for a reason. They need the company's help for a reason. And if you go in with that mindset, I wouldn't necessarily say it's difficult to stop the imposter syndrome, but
Hmm.
it puts a buffer on how strong that imposter syndrome really is when you go in with the mindset of they don't know what they don't know, and
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know. Everyone doesn't know the exact same things. I'm here to learn. They're here to learn. We're both in this meeting for a reason.
Yeah. So sales, right? Sellers, what I believe to be true is we hold the holy grail of what happens when you purchase, the purchase
Yep.
process, how to get people involved. Really, it encompasses making the customer feel comfortable buying again. And my analogy is we go into these weird websites when we're looking for something. For example, I'm looking for an espresso machine. I'm looking at who has the cheapest espresso machine. And I go on this weird website that is slightly cheaper than your brick and mortar, like enterprise Best Buy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to purchase from this website, although it's pretty attractive, the price. As soon as I hit click purchase and I receive it, that eliminates all the ambiguity and pain for that website. And it's so much easier for me to become a reoccurring customer. So tying
Yep.
it back to the sales person, they are that. They're the gatekeeper to the process and the customer getting what they need. And so their job really is to share with the customer how to become comfortable, the process to help them feel comfortable to repurchase again. And so the
Yep.
imposter syndrome shouldn't exist because we're actually not the specialists in the solution. There's people for that. We're the specialists in making sure that every party feels comfortable with the information that they have so that everyone can make a decision and not feel buyer's remorse. So that's how I see it as one way to eliminate imposter syndrome. It's inevitable that we will have it though, because there will be things that are thrown out in the conversation that we don't know what's going on and we have no
Yep.
idea what it is. And then we say, they're going to find out. They're going to find out that I don't know anything,
Yeah.
right? And the one thing you do really well in your customer meetings your prospect meetings is you say that I'm not super technical. You buffer yourself for that. And I think they appreciate that and they already knew, but they don't have the other half of the puzzle to get that problem solved. And that is where you come in with the people, products, and knowledge.
And that's why there's like sales engineers as well. Sellers have a job, engineers have a job. We do the digging, we get all the information from the customer, and then we bring on one of the sales engineers to get into the technical aspect of it. And folks in my field, which is tech sales, they know how the process works. They know we do the digging, they know what type of questions we ask, like, they know how the
Mm-hmm.
dance works, and then when something does pop up, we book the demo, we bring the sales engineer on, and then from there we continue to have the dance. It's they've done it a million times. They know what's going to happen. They know how it happens. They do this every single day. You think like that, it puts that buffer within the imposter syndrome as well. That being said, a quick thing that popped up for me before was, do you think imposter syndrome has a direct correlation with comparison, comparing yourself to other folks? Do you think that's where
Mm.
the root of imposter syndrome comes from?
I was talking to my wife yesterday, and I had told her comparison is a theft of joy. That
Yep,
came up in a conversation. And then if we had to relate imposter syndrome to comparison, I think there is a part of it that does happen to a salesperson because they compare themselves to someone with the same role, but everything else is different. The role is the same. That's about it. What they bring on the table is different. Their background is different. So there is a sense of comparison there. I do think in sales comparison is healthy. Like
I
comparison
also
to other
think
people
comparison
is
is healthy,
healthy.
and I was just going
It's
to say
not.
that as well.
I'm glad because I want to know your thoughts on it, and I'll finish my piece real quick here. Is when you only compare yourself, like, am I better than what I was yesterday, or am I better than what I was a month? At some part of that process, you forget to remind yourself and ask those questions,
Yep,
and so then you stop growing. And you lose that time frame of when you did ask versus you didn't. Whereas if you compare yourself to somebody else, they're constantly there. The number's right there for you to see. Now you're chasing that number.
yep.
And then that's a reminder for you to continue doing the things that are uncomfortable, continue trying different things and iterate until it makes sense. So your thoughts on that?
I think with comparison, you don't really know what's actually possible until you compare yourself with someone or you look at someone else's numbers. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's where comparison, like the healthy aspect of comparison, does come into play. Is
Mm-hmm.
if if I'm getting 90% of quota and there's someone else in the organization who's getting 170% of quota consistently,
Mm-hmm.
I honestly need to compare myself with them and think, what am I doing wrong and what are they doing right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's the only way that I'm going to be able to get to that next level, is if it starts with comparison. In a healthy way, I think comparison is great, but in a non-healthy way, and when you start doing it too much and you start doing it for everything, for example, if I'm into role for 3 months and I'm comparing myself with someone who's in role for 6 years, and
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out everything that's like
Right.
going on and like their how they ask questions, like their technicality, that's where the issue does come into play.
Mm-hmm.
But then
That is,
that also shows
yeah,
you what's truly possible, or like
yeah,
what everyone's actually capable of here, is when you look
right.
at it that way. Perspective to everything.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned like asking technical questions or asking those pieces and what is possible. And that's where I feel like it is important to learn on the job and get information, learn through osmosis. As soon as you tell yourself, I can't do that
Yep.
because I'm just not built that way, or I can't do that yet, then there is that comparison where I feel like maybe what needs to be compared is how can you do that without the technical aspect? How can you get there instead? Because I do find that that is another artificial speed bump that people will have. Somebody else is super technical. They've learned it on the job for 6 years. They're asking these questions. And I say to myself as a seller, the only way that I can do that is wait 6 years
Yep.
or get my certification and all these artificial hurdles. But instead, if they say, how can I get the same answer by asking questions that I know how to ask without adding those technical pieces to it? Then they make it their own. And they've
Yep.
now just accelerated their sales skills because that is something that they can take anywhere with them in a different industry. I don't
Yep.
think people do that enough, and they shoot themselves in the foot because they say that the glass is half full for them, and they don't allow themselves to be creative in that aspect.
And shifting the focus completely back to what you initially said, the conversation you
Hmm.
had with your wife was comparison is the thief of joy. In life in general, why do you think comparison is the thief of joy, completely apart from sales?
Yeah, I I think that comparison is the theft of joy in life is because people don't truly appreciate what they have if they're constantly looking to their left or
Yep.
right.
Yep.
They don't look at what's in front of them. They don't appreciate it enough. And I am notorious for that. I have all the scar tissues for that. Is that any success that I've had, I've always said, what's next? And it brought me to places where I think I'm very happy with, but I lose celebrating that milestone. So bringing it back to our very first topic of work-life harmony, that is where I feel like when we look at comparison as a theft of joy, there is healthy competition and there's unhealthy competition. There's competing with yourself and not allowing yourself to really be in the present moment. And it's okay to slow things down. So I'm going on a tangent here, but what I would say is if I could change some things in my life, I would say it would be okay to slow things down a little bit so that I can celebrate and have milestones for those successes. I think it would bring a little bit more sanity into a portion of my life. Or else what ends up happening is sometimes I see a timeline of my life and it's all a blur because there were so many different focuses and wanting to get stuff done and never really structuring it. It's almost like reading a book without chapters. 300 pages without a chapter in between. It's hard to look back and say what defined what in part of the story. So that's how I see it. What about you? What are your thoughts on that?
I agree. And I think I'm also a victim to not celebrating the small wins.
You're frozen. This is it.
Cut out. Do we cut out?
Yeah, lost
Okay.
you for a second. You're back.
I was saying,
Welcome back.
I think I'm also someone who's a victim of not celebrating the small wins because when I do something right, it's always in my head that there's always more to do or I didn't do it properly. Like, how can I look back on that situation and make it even better? If I had
Hmm.
a customer call or I had a good month, now what's next for me? How do I do the same thing the
Hmm.
next month? What did I do this month that wasn't good enough that's going to stop me from going into month seven and
Hmm.
repeating the same mistakes?
Yeah.
And I think that's where, not for me, but for a ton of folks, that's where that work life balance aspect does come into play, where you do something good and you're always focusing on what can I do next and how can I be better rather than I'm going to take this win and I'm going to celebrate it with my family or the people that I love.
Yeah. Something about celebrating. I think there's something about sharing. You're on a point there. You got to share that with somebody, and they are going to be the ones that help you pause for a second and remind you to celebrate. Because I know that
Yep.
anytime that we have any sort of wins, you're telling me like, hey, this is what I did. And I'm like, damn, that is amazing. And then we'll talk about it for a little bit. And those are the pauses that I think that are necessary.
Yep.
Or else if it's just a response back like that is great, you stop celebrating yourself. You lose
Yeah.
that momentum, right? And it's not valued as much as it should be. So those are the little bolded text in the chapters, I would say, that
I,
we yeah.
I like from what I've seen and people that I've spoken to and stuff that I've read online, leadership has a lot to do with that as well. When you're speaking to your leader, you share a win. It's a matter of, cool, now how are you going to do it next month again? Rather than, nice, you did all of this. You've been going at it
Hmm.
for 7, 8 months. Share that win rather than, or not share that win, celebrating that win rather than celebrating that win. It's a matter of what can you do better and how can you go into next month and do the exact same thing.
Right. Iterations. Something we talk about a lot. Iterations. Like what you do
Yeah.
well, what would you change? If you never look and reflect on what has happened, then you're always going blind. We talked about in one of our chats, what got you here won't get you there, right? That's how you differentiate luck from hard work and payoff. So um, that's what I'll say there. But
But
that
before the
was the topic.
iterations
Yeah.
happens, I feel like you have to take the pause and celebrate before you can go into the
Yes.
what can you do
Absolutely.
better, what did you
Yeah.
do, etc., etc. You gotta take the pause. To be honest, once again, very contradicting of me to say because I'm always thinking, what's next? How
What's
can I be
next?
better?
What's next? Right.
But I feel like it's so difficult because like the people that I look up to and like look at every single day, like Kobe Bryant, love Kobe Bryant, Ronaldo, I love Ronaldo. I'm sure you know
Yeah.
Tom Brady, my opinion, the greatest
Yeah.
quarterback of all time, greatest football player of all time. They all say when we won the championship, we were always thinking, what's next? How can I get the
Hmm.
next one? And that
Hmm.
mindset, it's so instilled into me that I'm so deep into it that it's hard getting out of it. And it makes so much
Yeah.
sense, but at the same time, it doesn't make so much sense. And I have to find the fine line. That's on me now to find the fine line
What?
of what do I want
I'll
to do with it?
stop you there. That's where I say people around you have to stop you on your tracks and to celebrate with you. That
Yep.
is where when you give the examples of the athletes is the committees that host the awards, the fans that go up and are just ecstatic to talk to them.
Yep.
That is people pausing them on their tracks and allowing them to feel a glimpse of what they should be feeling inside. As sales reps, I think that we also have people around us that do the same thing. A lot of sales reps don't talk about their wins enough. You know
Yep.
that because I
Yep.
feel like it's pulling teeth sometimes to ask people to celebrate their wins and to be very confident about it. The word that was given to me from someone was like, I don't want to be braggy about it. I'm like, you're not being braggy. Like, I want you to be overly confident about it instead. Or else what ends up happening is like, I celebrate with you, we give each other a virtual high five, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like,
Nobody knows.
it's yeah, let people stop you in the tracks in the future and be like, hey, I've noticed a lot of wins happening for your side. Like, I want to
Yeah.
chat with you. I want to know what you're thinking about. Because when you talk to people and when you educate people, you get to learn twice, right? And you get to learn about what you could have done better too. So it actually is a win-win for everyone. But more so, the people around you are the ones that should be coming to you and stopping you and celebrating with you, and so that you can bold out that chapter in your story. And that's how I see it. If you forget to, yeah,
What's your final verdict?
I think imposter syndrome will always exist. If we have the mindset of I can do this better than anyone else, that's all that matters, even if you don't know how. So that would be my final verdict, especially in sales. I can sell better than anyone else. I can communicate better than anyone else. Was this win wasn't out of luck? There are many components that compounded towards this. That's what I think will mitigate
I'm
that,
on the
but it will always exist.
I'm on the same boat. On the exact same boat. You know what you don't know. The person you're meeting with knows what they don't know.
Hmm.
Everyone's there to learn. They're here for a reason. You're there for a reason. You got to figure it out. Imposter syndrome, it's always going to be there, but you can always add buffers to it as well.
Buffers to it. Keyword. All right. I think that's it. Catch you on the
That
next
is
one.
it. Catch you
Okay.
later, sir. Bye bye.